The story unfolds in the sweltering summer of 2021 at Greater Hope Missionary Baptist Church, one of the largest black congregations on Chicago's South Side. With its modern design and polished stone exterior, the church was a symbol of affluence and influence under the leadership of Pastor Langston Reed. At 45, Pastor Reed was tall, broad-shouldered, and charismatic, with a smile that had been featured on countless local TV specials and community charity galas. His dynamic sermons filled the 3,000-seat sanctuary every Sunday. His marriage to Vanessa Reed, a powerhouse in real estate development, was touted as the gold standard of black excellence. But beneath the surface, darkness brewed. Kenya Rollins joined the church staff as Pastor Reed's executive assistant in January 2021. At 32, Kenya was intelligent, driven, and harboring a painful truth. She'd been living with HIV since her mid-20s, after a relationship with a man who had knowingly withheld his status. The moment I met Pastor Reed, something didn't sit right, she would later tell investigators. He looked at me like I was something he wanted to devour. But I needed the job. My mom was sick, bills were piling up, and the salary was more than I'd ever made. The first inappropriate comments came under the guise of compliments. "That dress looks real nice on you, Sister Rollins. You ever thought about wearing your hair down more? It frames your face beautifully. Has anyone told you how striking your eyes are?" Kenya would try to pivot. "Thank you, Pastor. I should probably get back to those donation reports." But soon, subtle remarks turned into lingering touches, a hand resting too low on her back, fingertips grazing her arm, him standing too close while reviewing documents. By March, he was manufacturing reasons to keep her late. "Sister Rollins, I could use help organizing these counseling files for Sunday. No one's around at this hour." One night, he shut the door behind them. "Kenya, I know you feel this. God brought you here for a reason." She backed away. "Pastor Reed, you're married. This isn't right. The heart wants what it wants. Don't you feel it too? I should go." That's when he grabbed her arm. "You might want to reconsider that decision. A lot of folks would kill for your position. It'd be unfortunate if your evaluations took a turn." Kenya's heart raced as she yanked her arm free. She had responsibilities. Her mother's treatment, rent, her own HIV meds that barely made the insurance cut. The next morning, she requested a transfer to the church's administrative wing. Denied. She asked to adjust her schedule to avoid being alone with him. Denied. She began documenting everything. Screenshots, voice memos, notes, even when she could, recordings. In April, Pastor Reed summoned her. "I'm starting to think this role might not be a good fit. Are you firing me? Let's just say we're parting ways amicably, unless you prefer it be something more official." Kenya left the church office in tears. That night, she stared at her bottle of antiretrovirals. A chilling plan took root. The next day, she called him. "I'm sorry about yesterday. Maybe you're right. Maybe there is something between us. Could we talk? Over dinner?" His response was instant. "I knew you'd come around. I've got a private spot in mind." As she ended the call, Kenya whispered, "God, forgive me." The restaurant was tucked away in Evanston, far from their usual haunts. Pastor Reed had reserved a private booth under the alias James Smith. Kenya wore the red dress he once complimented, her heart a tangle of shame and strategy. "You look incredible," he said, eyes crawling over her. Over wine, something a Baptist preacher shouldn't have been sipping, he laid down his terms. No church phones. No public appearances. If anybody asks, you're working remotely as consultant. And don't mention my wife. I've got an image to maintain." Kenya nodded, her hand resting near the voice recorder in her purse. "Discretion matters to me, too." That night, they met again at a boutique hotel. She had done her homework. In Illinois, knowingly transmitting HIV without disclosure was a Class 2 felony. She needed proof that he initiated the affair. She had already told him, early in her employment, that she didn't engage with married men for religious reasons. She had screenshots of his coercive behavior. She even had records of her rejected transfer request. Lying next to him in that dim hotel room, watching him sleep, she thought, Langston Reed, pillar of the community, serial manipulator, is about to learn the consequences of his own hypocrisy. At home, she scribbled in her journal, Day 1, evidence secured, hotel receipt, audio files, text messages. He never asked about protection, never asked about my health, just took what he wanted. Like always, over the next few weeks, they established a routine. Tuesday and Thursday evenings were counseling. Sunday afternoons were ministry planning. Vanessa's busy travel schedule left space for the charade. Kenya played her part well, the reluctant woman of faith who'd finally yielded to temptation. At church, they kept things strictly professional. But now, Kenya noticed the patterns. The way his eyes tracked younger women, the closed-door meetings with single mothers, the scripture-twisting manipulation. God has given me discernment about you, he'd whisper. This is his plan for us. She wondered how many women had heard that same line. June brought complications. Vanessa Reed began spending more time at the church and watching her husband. Rumors began swirling about Kenya's return. One Sunday morning, Vanessa cornered her in the ladies' room. I've seen how he looks at you. Kenya's heart skipped. Mrs. Reed, Save it. You're not the first. Just know this. I helped build everything that man owns. And I'm not going anywhere. That night, Kenya called her cousin Raina, a nurse who knew her health status. I'm in way too deep. You need to walk away, Raina warned. This ain't worth your peace. He tried to break me. Now, he needs to face consequences. Pastor Reed only grew more reckless. His late-night texts grew bolder, his demands more brazen. My wife's out of town next week, he told her after Wednesday Bible study. Come to the house. Your house? That's bold. I want you in my bed, not in some hotel. Besides, I disabled the cameras. Kenya saved that message. The next day, she had lunch with her mother, who was still recovering from chemo. You seem weighed down lately, baby. What's wrong? Kenya forced a smile. Just some work stress, Mama. It'll pass. But it wasn't passing. The revenge plan, no matter how justified it felt, was taking a spiritual toll. Still, whenever she considered walking away, she remembered his threats, his smug arrogance, the entitlement he wielded like a crown. God works in mysterious ways, Pastor Reed often said. And now, he certainly was. As the summer scorched on, so did the affair. Pastor Reed became careless. His ego inflated, convinced he was invincible. Their first time at his Kenwood home felt surreal. Kenya parked outside the pristine brick mansion and recorded a timestamp, July 12, 2021, 8:45 p.m., entering Pastor Langston Reed's residence at his invitation. Security cameras disabled. The master bedroom felt like a violation. Family portraits. Vanessa's robe draped over a chair, her perfume lingering in the air. Pastor Reed didn't seem to care. Afterward, lying in his wife's bed, Kenya asked softly, Aren't you worried about STDs or anything? He laughed. I'm a man of God. He watches over his chosen. She documented that comment too. By August, the signs started showing. Pastor Reed grew fatigued. He'd sweat through his sheets. Low-grade fevers made him irritable. Must be that summer flu going around, he muttered, chasing Tylenol with orange juice. Kenya watched Pastor Reed deteriorate with clinical detachment, noting every symptom like a scientist observing a specimen. Swollen lymph nodes. He blamed those on stress. Muscle aches? Must be from lifting too hard at the gym. Low fevers? Chicago's heat wave. Night sweats? Just bad dreams. The weight loss? He chalked that up to clean eating and finally shedding that gut. But Kenya knew the truth, and she documented every moment. As his health declined, his dependence on her grew. The power dynamics shifted subtly. He confided in her more, leaned on her emotionally. Sometimes I feel like you're the only one who really sees me, he said one night. If only you knew, she thought. At church, his transformation was visible. His passionate sermons became shorter, less powerful. He took frequent pauses, sipped more water, clung to the podium. The congregation whispered, "Pastor's just tired. That diet must be too extreme. He needs a break." Vanessa Reed noticed too. Kenya once overheard her behind his office door. "Langston, something ain't right. You need to see a doctor." "I'm fine, woman. Stop nagging me." But he wasn't fine. By September, the symptoms could no longer be dismissed. During one of their hotel meetings, he shivered under the blankets, unable to maintain an erection. "Maybe you should go to the ER," Kenya suggested, knowing exactly what they'd find. "No hospitals. Just need some rest," he muttered. That night, she wrote in her journal, "The virus is advancing. Acute HIV symptoms. He's in denial. His ego will be his undoing." Meanwhile, the church felt the shift. Associate Pastor Marcus Thompson began leading more services. Emergency meetings with the deacon board became more frequent. Attendance dipped. The flock could sense that something was wrong. Kenya maintained her professional face, but inside, guilt clawed at her. Every sermon, every silent moment in his office, every night she spent alone wrestling with her conscience. She began attending HIV support groups under a different name, offering a sanitized version of her story. "I'm watching someone suffer what I went through," she shared one evening, "but I can't do anything to help." The group leader, Miss Clara, an elderly woman with sharp eyes and gentle wisdom, saw through her mask. "Revenge might taste sweet, baby, but it'll rot your spirit if you hold on to it too long." September brought a new storm. During a live-streamed sermon, Pastor Reed nearly collapsed at the pulpit. The footage went viral in Chicago's religious circles. That was Vanessa's breaking point. "Either you see a doctor, or I'm bringing one here myself," she snapped. Langston chose a private clinic in the Gold Coast, discreet, upscale. Kenya knew what was coming. She had planned for it. The call came on a Tuesday evening. "I need to see you. It's serious." His voice sounded hollow, broken. The private suite at Northwestern Memorial felt suffocating despite its luxury. He sat on the edge of the bed in a designer robe, lab results scattered around him. He looked like a shadow of himself. "HIV positive," he said, staring straight ahead. How? How is this possible?" Kenya's face remained composed. "What? That can't be right. 3 tests, all positive, and there's pneumonia starting in my lungs." His hands trembled as he held the paperwork. "I'm a man of God. This isn't supposed to happen to people like me." She watched him spiral through the classic stages of denial in real time. "The test is wrong. Somebody at the lab made a mistake. This is the devil attacking me. Spiritual warfare." And then, the question she'd anticipated. "You need to get tested." Kenya pulled out her phone, showing him the most recent negative HIV result she'd taken the week before. "I'm clean." Relief flooded his face. Then suspicion. Then how? She watched his mind spin, sorting through possibilities. Of course there were other women. Plenty of them. That night, Vanessa came to hospital. Kenya lingered in the hallway outside their suite. Listening through the door, "HIV? Langston, what are you talking about? I've been faithful to you for 20 damn years. Vanessa, please. Don't lie to me. Not now. How many were there? I don't. How many?" The shouting continued until security stepped in and asked Vanessa to calm down. She stormed out of the room, mascara streaking her cheeks, and nearly collided with Kenya. "Here to check on your pastor?" Her voice was venom. "A little late for office hours, don't you think?" Kenya stepped back. "Mrs. Reed, I was just dropping off church documents." "Save it. I know exactly what you've been dropping off." She moved in closer, her tone icy. "But here's something you don't know. I've had private investigators tailing Langston for months. Every hotel, every counseling session, every little lunch date. I've got receipts." Kenya's heart thudded in her chest. "Mrs. Reed, I was building a case for divorce court. But now it's criminal court. Someone gave my husband HIV. And when I find out who..." She didn't finish the sentence. After she walked away, Kenya collapsed into her car, hands trembling. This wasn't part of the plan. Investigators meant cameras, photos, surveillance, evidence. She called Raina. His wife knows. She has proof of the affair. Jesus, Kenya. This ain't just messy, it's dangerous now. It was always dangerous. But if I call a lawyer now, it looks like guilt. That night, sleep didn't come. She heard Miss Clara's voice in her head. Revenge poisons a soul. But wasn't that the whole point? To make Langston feel what she'd felt? The following days were chaos. Pastor Reed checked himself out of the hospital against doctor's orders. The deacon board met nightly. Vanessa moved out of the Kenwood mansion and into a condo in the Loop. New Hope's attendance took a nosedive. News vans circled the church like vultures. Kenya kept up appearances. The dutiful assistant, the supportive staffer. She attended team meetings about Pastor Reed's health challenges, helped craft carefully worded public statement about him, taking time to rest and reflect. But inside, she was unraveling. Every cough, every wince, every sigh of discomfort from him pierced her soul. She knew those symptoms. She had lived them. One evening, he called her into his office. He looked frail, pale, like a man who had stared too long into his own grave. "I need you to be honest with me," he said. Her heart pounded. "About what, Pastor? Did you ever hear anything from the others? Any warnings? Any signs?" The irony made her want to scream. "No, Pastor. I didn't know about anyone else." He nodded slowly, his face full of regret. "I've destroyed everything. My marriage, my ministry, my life." "God forgives," she said softly, though the words turned to ash in her mouth. "Does he? For this?" She left him staring out at the Chicago skyline through his office window. In her car, she screamed until her voice cracked. Then came the headlines. Prominent South Side pastor resigns amid scandal and health concerns. The Chicago Defender was first reported, carefully citing anonymous sources. But the implication was clear: HIV, infidelity, shame. The comments section exploded. His first interview was with Vanessa Reed. "When did you first suspect your husband was unfaithful?" "Suspect? I knew. He got sloppy. Lipstick on collars. Late nights. Sketchy credit card charges. But I stayed. We built this life together. Leaving would have meant losing everything we fought for." She paused. "But now someone infected him with HIV. That changes everything." Detective Williams pored over the PI surveillance files. Dozens of women appeared, but one stood out: Kenya Rollins. She was the most frequent companion, the only one who returned to the job after resigning, the only one still close to Pastor Reed during his diagnosis. Detective Williams requested Kenya Rollins' employment records from New Hope Baptist. The timeline was questionable. Hired in January 2021, resigned abruptly in April, then mysteriously rehired in May as a special assistant with double the salary. He brought her in for questioning at the precinct. "Ms. Rollins, why'd you go back to work for Pastor Reed after resigning the first time?" Kenya kept her composure. He offered better terms. "I had bills to pay." Williams leaned forward. "Including private meetings at hotels?" She met his gaze without flinching. "I'm not sure what you're suggesting." "We've got photos, Ms. Rollins. The Hyatt, the Drake, even his house." She leaned in, her voice low and sharp. "Do you have photos of him threatening my job? Him blocking the door to his office? Or just the ones that make me look like a mistress?" Williams noted the sudden shift in posture, defensive but not panicked. "When were you diagnosed with HIV?" he asked. "That's protected health information. And until you have a charge, this interview is over." She stood and called her attorney, Vernon Walsh, who quickly shut the meeting down. Outside the interrogation room, Williams turned to his partner. "She's hiding something. But so is everybody else in this train wreck." The investigation widened. Williams subpoenaed her phone records, hotel bills, church finances, medical history, and even security footage from hotel lobbies. A pattern emerged. Pastor Reed had made regular cash withdrawals that aligned with ministry support payments to various women. One bank account was used solely for hotel rooms, designer gifts, and luxury dinners. But pinning down the exact moment of HIV transmission proved difficult. multiple women, multiple potential sources. Most refused to be tested or cooperate. Meanwhile, Pastor Reed's health deteriorated rapidly. The medications helped, but the stress and shame aged him. He lost 30 pounds. His dark skin turned ashen. Rumors swirled that he was terminal. Vanessa's divorce filing became public. 2 decades of infidelity, financial abuse, sexual misconduct, and gross misuse of church funds. The church board couldn't ignore the pressure anymore. They voted to remove Langston Reed as senior pastor. The news split the congregation. Pastor Reed needs prayer, not punishment. Touch not God's anointed. Judge not, lest you be judged. But others applauded the decision. About time someone stopped that man. How many lives has he wrecked? God don't like ugly, and Pastor Reed's been living foul for years. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. One crisp November morning, Raina walked into Detective Williams' office, her hands trembling. "I have information about Pastor Reed's infection," she said. Williams leaned forward. "Go ahead." "My cousin, Kenya. She's been positive since 2017. She told me everything. How Pastor Reed harassed her, threatened her job. When she went back to work, she wasn't just trying to survive. She had a plan." Williams narrowed his eyes. "What kind of plan?" She called it justice. Said he needed to know what it felt like to be violated. She did it on purpose. Williams opened the case, filed slowly. "I need all of this on record. Start from the beginning." Raina described everything. The late-night phone calls, the unwanted touching, Kenya's forced resignation, the carefully orchestrated return, the way she manipulated Pastor Reed's ego to control him. She told him about the journals, months of entries tracking symptoms, dates, emotions, everything. She documented it all. She wanted proof it came from her. After Raina left, Williams made the call to the district attorney. The charge was clear now. Aggravated assault with intent to transmit HIV, a Class 2 felony carrying 3 to 7 years. But they needed those journals. Detectives executed a search warrant at Kenya's apartment while she attended Sunday service. Inside, they found 5 notebooks meticulously chronicling the affair. USB drives held voice recordings. There were folders of hotel receipts, screenshots of text messages, even a medical timeline detailing Pastor Reed's declining health. The most damning evidence came from her personal journal. April 15th, 2021. "He fired me today for rejecting him. Thinks he can toss me aside like trash. I have something for him, a gift that keeps on giving." May 3rd, 2021. "The plan starts today. He's so eager, so careless, never asks about protection. His arrogance will be his downfall." July 20th, 2021. "First signs are showing. He's too proud to see a doctor. Just like I was too ashamed back when it happened to me." September 28th, 2021. Diagnosis confirmed. "He cried like a baby. Where was that compassion when he was wrecking women's lives?" Detective Williams ordered surveillance. Kenya's behavior changed almost immediately. She swapped cars with friends, made calls from burner phones, and was seen meeting with her lawyer multiple times a week. Back at church, tensions grew. Anonymous letters appeared in staff mailboxes. "Sister Rollins has HIV. She did this on purpose. Check her medical records." Vanessa's private investigators dug deeper. They discovered Kenya's consistent visits to an HIV clinic, support group sign-ins, and her 2017 diagnosis. Pharmacy records confirmed ongoing prescriptions for antiretroviral medication. Then came another voice. Angela Wilson, another former staffer, came forward to confess what she'd been holding in. "Kenya told me about the plan last spring. I didn't stop her. Maybe that makes me just as guilty. But after what Pastor Reed did to me, to all of us, I understood." "Did she specifically say she was going to infect him?" Williams asked. Angela nodded slowly. She said, "He thinks HIV is punishment for sin. Let's test that theory." The district attorney's office began drafting charges. The evidence was overwhelming. Raina's testimony, Kenya's journals, her medical records, surveillance photos, witness accounts, audio recordings. But the case was a minefield. A black female victim, a powerful black pastor. Race, gender, religion, trauma, and revenge all collided in one explosive situation. As whispers of the investigation's erection leaked, the media jumped on it. Pastor's HIV infection may be criminal. Church secretary under scrutiny. Revenge plot shakes South Side congregation. The black community splintered. She was protecting herself. He pushed her. He had it coming. Two wrongs don't make a right. This is bigger than both of them. This hurts us all. Kenya was arrested after a Sunday service, off church grounds to avoid a public spectacle. Detective Williams met her in the parking lot. Kenya Rollins, you're under arrest for aggravated assault with intent to transmit HIV. She didn't flinch, just gave him a weary smile. I was wondering when you'd catch up. The charges were official. 1 count of aggravated assault. 1 count of criminal HIV transmission. 1 count of reckless conduct. Bail was set at $250,000. Someone from the church paid it. Anonymously, Vernon Walsh, her attorney, built their defense around 3 main points: coercion and sexual harassment, Pastor Reed's long-standing pattern of predatory behavior, lack of conclusive proof that Kenya was the source of infection. The arraignment drew cameras and crowds. Kenya wore a muted gray suit with her hair pulled into a tight bun. Pastor Reed arrived in a wheelchair, looking like a shell of the man he once was. Assistant DA Sarah Rodriguez laid out plainly. The defendant meticulously planned to infect the victim with HIV. She documented every step. This was calculated biological assault. Walsh shot back. My client was sexually harassed, manipulated, and threatened by a man who abused his power and spiritual authority. If transmission occurred, it happened during encounters he forced through psychological coercion. A trial date was set for March 2022. Meanwhile, the legal chaos multiplied. Vanessa Reed filed a civil suit against Kenya for alienation of affection. A group of church members launched a class action suit over potential exposure. Several former victims sued New Hope Baptist for enabling a culture of abuse. The church board sued Pastor Reed for financial mismanagement. Then came the most unexpected turn yet. In January, more women came forward, and their stories shifted everything. Kimberly Peters saying, "He infected me in 2019. I was too ashamed to speak up." And Angela Wilson also saying, "I tested positive 6 months after our affair ended in 2020. The timeline began to blur. Had Kenya Rollins deliberately infected Pastor Langston Reed, or had he already been HIV positive, passing the virus to her and others before she ever re-entered his orbit? DNA sequencing could potentially determine the direction of transmission, but Kenya's original 2017 samples were long gone. Scientifically, the evidence was inconclusive. Pastor Reed's health eventually stabilized with consistent antiretroviral treatment. In a carefully orchestrated press conference, he addressed the public. "I confess my failures," he said solemnly. "As a husband, a shepherd of this church, and a man of God, I fell short. But I never meant to harm anyone. What Sister Rollins did was deliberate and malicious." Kenya's support group stood firmly behind her. Miss Clara, the wise elder who had counseled her through dark times, didn't hold back in front of reporters. That man preyed on broken women for years. The real crime is how long folks kept covering for him. The church protected him while he destroyed lives. The case ignited national debates. HIV criminalization laws, spiritual abuse, church complicity, the limits of revenge, and the dangerous imbalance of power within religious institutions. By February, pre-trial motions began. The defense sought to introduce Reed's history of sexual misconduct, internal church memos suggesting a culture of cover-up, and testimony from women spanning more than a decade. The prosecution, meanwhile, filed to exclude prior harassment claims, investigative files from Vanessa Reed's private detective, and references to other victims or their HIV status. The judge sided mostly with the defense, stating that Reed's established pattern of behavior was vital in understanding motive and state of mind. As the trial neared, the stakes loomed larger than one criminal charge. This was now a battle over truth, power, vengeance, and ultimately, redemption. The trial began on a bitterly cold Chicago morning. News crews lined South Martin Luther King Drive, while crowds gathered outside the courthouse holding signs. Justice for survivors. HIV is not a weapon. Pray for Pastor Reed. Stop church abuse. Inside, Assistant DA Sarah Rodriguez opened her case. This is about intentional harm. The defendant weaponized her HIV status to punish a man she blamed for her pain. She kept notes. She tracked his symptoms. She watched him suffer and did nothing. Vernon Walsh, Kenya's defense attorney, stood and delivered his rebuttal. This is a story of abuse and survival. Langston Reed exploited women under the guise of spiritual care. When one woman refused to be another silent victim, he labeled her a criminal. But the evidence will show that he infected others long before Sister Rollins ever returned his life. At first, the prosecution's case appeared airtight. Rachel's testimony about Kenya's plan, the journals, surveillance footage, and medical records. But cracks emerged under cross-examination. Rachel wavered. Did your cousin ever say she was going to give him HIV? Not in those words, Rachel admitted. She said he needed to know what it felt like. Dr. Sarah Chun, an infectious disease expert, took the stand. Based on the virus's mutation rate and the number of sexual partners involved, we cannot definitively determine who infected whom. In fact, evidence suggests Reverend Reed may have been positive before 2021. Then came the voices of other survivors. Kimberly Peters recounted her experience from 2019. He told me condoms weren't necessary, that God would protect us. When I tested positive, he disappeared. The church gave me hush money. Angela Wilson shared her 2020 nightmare. He called me a Jezebel, accused me of being promiscuous, threatened to expose me if I said anything. The prosecution's timeline began to unravel. If Reed had exposed women in 2019 and 2020, he couldn't have been infected by Kenya in 2021. Even Vanessa Reed, his estranged wife, took the stand and helped the defense. Langston showed symptoms long before Kenya came back. Night sweats, unexplained weight loss. I begged him to see a doctor. He refused. When it came time to address the controversial journals, Walsh didn't flinch. Miss Rollins, please explain these entries. Kenya's voice was steady, but her eyes shimmered with restrained pain. I was angry. I felt used, discarded. Those words were my pain, my fantasies. But I didn't give him anything. He gave it to me, just like he gave it to others. Then why return to work? Walsh pressed, to gather proof. I knew he'd do it again, and I wanted to stop him before he hurt anyone else. Without proof of intentional transmission, and with new evidence of Reed's prior infections, the prosecution struggled to prove criminal intent. Then came the internal church documents. Years of ignored complaints, non-disclosure payouts, and leadership meetings detailing HIV exposure allegations. The deacon board had known. They had buried it. The jury deliberated for 4 days. When they returned, the courtroom fell silent, not guilty on all counts. The judge looked directly at Kenya. Your actions may have lacked wisdom, but the law requires proof beyond doubt. This case exposes a tangled web of power, manipulation, and trauma that too often hides in sacred places. The aftermath shook Chicago's religious community. New Life Baptist fractured. Half the congregation followed Associate Pastor Marcus Thompson to a new ministry. Vanessa Reed quietly settled her divorce. The remaining church board resigned en masse. Civil lawsuits erupted, most ending in confidential settlements. Pastor Reed relocated to Atlanta, founding a new restoration ministry. State lawmakers introduced reforms to HIV disclosure and clergy misconduct laws. Kenya left Chicago for Milwaukee, hoping for a clean start. In her final journal entry, she wrote, "Truth is never neat. We were all victims and villains. He ruined lives, and I tried to ruin his. I thought revenge would heal me, but it only hollowed me out. May God forgive us all." Miss Clara's warning echoed long after the dust settled. Revenge poisons everyone it touches. The story will be remembered not just as a scandal, but as a sobering lesson about power, vulnerability, faith, and the thin line between justice and destruction. If this story moved you, there's so much more to uncover. Subscribe now to never miss the drama, the the emotion, and the untold truths. Join the journey. Hit that button and be part of the next stories. This is Ruthless Realities. Until next time.